No. Do that now so I won't forget. Oh. Got the youngest nephew graduated yesterday, so all is good.
You said the youngest nephew?
The youngest nephew, the youngest one. They
Wow.
are all kicked out of K through 12. Oh,
Does he have plans?
he's going to Iowa State, and he thinks right now, he thinks he wants to be a psychiatrist. So that's
Very nice.
That's his area. So we'll see. 2 years in, he'll change his mind and go some other direction.
I'm gonna give it just a couple minute or two to see if anyone else logs on.
Yeah, I can. It might be a
When we
little
stop her-
slower today. Hello, Jeff. Here, Jeff.
Hey, should we stop our videos if we're eating?
No, what do you have?
What are you having for lunch there, Jeff?
I'm having spaghetti and meat sauce.
Ooh.
Yeah, I don't know why it is that I don't mind having people watch me eat if I'm sitting at the table at Rotary, but somehow doing it on screen is just, so that's why you get my picture.
That's why you're getting on to get well.
You get
Jeff, I'm most worried about your clothes with that spaghetti sauce.
That's our bed. You wouldn't be able to see it.
Well, I am going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to the May 23rd meeting of the Rotary Club of Ames. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's go ahead and please stay standing for a moment of silence. Let's keep those in our thoughts that have sacrificed for our country and continue to do so, and just remembering them this Memorial weekend. Thank you. You can be seated. There. Okay. Those of you that are guests or visiting Rotarians, thank you for tuning in. And at this time, I will invite John. And I'm not sure if Louis is there or not, but John, go ahead and take it away.
Okay, thanks, Kelsey. Welcome to you from Ames Rotary, Novator, London, or Gay Paris, from far off lands or the USA. We're glad that you are here today. Come back again whenever you're near. Join us and then we'll make it clear. Around the world you will always see. Welcome at Rotary.
Thank you very much. I believe Glenn wanted a couple words today at our meeting. Is that okay, Karen, if I go ahead and jump to him? Go ahead, Glenn.
It's okay with Glenn too. Real soon, in fact, the 1st of June, we're going to be having visitors from Tanzania here. And we are looking for day and night hosts to help keep them well entertained and housed while they're here. The first few days they're here, they'll be not actually here in Iowa, but they will be landing in Iowa and then take off the next day for the International Rotary Convention down in Houston, where they're scheduled to attend a couple of meetings there. And then they will return back here on June 7th. And starting right away on the June 8th, because they get in real late on the 7th, they'll be at a Webster City Rotary Club meeting, which is just south of Webster City at the Brigwood Woods location. But from the 8th through the 17th, they will be here in central Iowa with the Rotary Club of Ames. And we have several days and night options available yet. And then after that, from the 18th through 26th, they'll be in the Des Moines, hands the Des Moines Rotary Club and Reg and Roberta Yoder. And believe it or not, they're taking them to the Rocky Mountains because that's one of their severe wishes is to see the Rocky Mountains. And then when they leave the United States on the 27th of June, they fly directly to Hamburg, Germany, and meet some Rotary people there that they needed to visit with before returning to Tanzania. So if anybody's interested in getting to know the Kajiros, Kimbami and Ruth, please let me know. Kimbami is a retired financial officer of the Evangelical Lutheran Church there in Same, and has been one of the key players in all the water projects, and his wife Ruth will be accompanying him. So if anybody's interested, please contact me. I'm easy to get a hold of. I'm in the contact list for the club. So hope to hear from all of you. Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn. One quick question. So are you just asking for people to host or to lunch, to host a breakfast, or
All that is available. You can do a lunch, you can do a dinner, you can do a day host, night host, overnight, any meal of the day, which I would gladly entertain it all.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Like I said, we just have a few dates open, so please contact me soon.
Okay.
Quick question. Is it okay if they're moving from home to home, or do you want to have them in one place?
They are moving from home to home.
Okay.
We want them to get to know as many people as they can.
Thank you. All right. This last Thursday, I believe, was the moment we had to volunteer for the Special Olympics. Thanks to this good-looking group. We really appreciate your service. So thank you so much. And next week, we do not have a club meeting in honor of Memorial Day. We will be back online June 6th and then back at the Alumni Center on June 13th. So no meeting next week. Enjoy some lunch on your own or with a fellow Rotarian if you'd like to get together. At this time, I will invite Kent to the microphone to introduce our speaker.
Thank you, Kelsey, much appreciated. And thank you all for your service. It's just greatly appreciated through the club and through the community. Well, today we have another opportunity to learn more about Iowa and in an especially special way. Our speaker is Joe, here I am going to blow it, Klingelhutz, I apologize. Thank you, Joe. Joe is a farm specialist with the nonprofit Sustainable Iowa Land Trust. The acronym is SILT. Joe is a magna cum laude graduate of Iowa State University. He has a degree in environmental science and a minor in forestry. He's spent his summers working at vegetable farms such as Sundog Farm and Wildwoods Farm, ran a forestry crew in the Western United States, And his undergraduate work included hands-on experience with Iowa State's Prairie Strips project and riparian buffers. I probably mispronounced that as well. On top of all this, Joe's an avid beekeeper and vegetable farmer with Radical Patch Cooperative in Iowa City, growing vegetables, herbs, and producing honey for his community. As a farm specialist, he's available to consult with rural landowners to take an inventory of the current conservation issues on your property, discuss optimal locations for the production of table food, fruits, vegetables, nuts, meat, poultry, pork, etc., and provide information about how to make your good stewardship last for generations to come with a conservation easement. His work is supported in part by the Natural Resources Conservation Service, USDA, and again, it represents for us one of our pillars in environmental health. So with that, Joe, the program is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kent, for that. I will share my screen here, and it was working when we first started. All right. Everyone can see that? Perfect. All right. Well, again, my name is Joe Klingelhutz, and I work for the Sustainable Iowa Land Trust as their full-time farm specialist. And I really want to thank you guys for having me here today. I have actually never given a presentation to a Rotary Club, and I am on a mission to present to as many Rotary Clubs as I can now, because I really want to create this connection and this network between our organization and what you and your organizations do around the state and around the country and overseas even. So thank you for being my first Rotary Club invitation, really. So a little bit of background. I know it was explained a little bit at the beginning here, but I went to Iowa State University and got my degree in environmental sciences and forestry. And I currently live in Iowa City, and there is that conflict between cyclones and hawks, but I root for both, except when they're going against each other. But I moved back to Iowa City. This is kind of my home area. I grew up in a small town called Solon, just north of Iowa City, south of Cedar Rapids here in Johnson County. And I started working for the Sustainable Iowa Land Trust about 3 years ago as their farm specialist. And I do farming on the side. This is my full-time job, but the farming I do is I do a lot of beekeeping. Like Kent said, I'm an avid beekeeper, and that's kind of my passion and something that really drives me and something I do throughout the year, actually. And I sell that honey through my own business, and I grow some vegetables with my farm partners at our other LLC. We rent an acre of land and have a small market here in town. We just raised some pasture-raised chickens, which we processed yesterday on the farm, which was a lot of fun. If you've ever processed chickens before, that's an experience to remember. But and I'm also growing a bunch of trees, chestnut, elderberries, pawpaw trees that I'm selling. So I dabble in a lot of different things, but this is my full-time job at SILT, and the farming is more of an intense hobby on the side. So just wanted to give you some background on myself before diving into what we do as an organization. So why SILT? Why the Sustainable Iowa Land Trust? I always ask, what is the why to anything and why we're doing what we're doing. So about 8 years ago, the Sustainable Iowa Land Trust was created for a reason by people in our state who work in agriculture, who work in our food system, who are farmers themselves, who are landowners, who work on policy. They got together to work and try to find a solution to some issues. And I personally believe, myself as a young farmer, doing this kind of work, that we are in a farm crisis. I do believe that we are in a farm and land crisis, and there are several things to point towards that. Right now, 50% of Iowa farmland is owned by people over the age of 65, which means that currently 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, there is going to be a massive transition of land ownership in our state. It's currently happening right now. 50% of the people who own the land here are over the age of 65. So as people die and as people sell land, it is going to get ever more consolidated. People are buying land from out of the state. People are buying land from out of the country. And sorry, I just saw a chat there. I wanted to make sure. And this is an issue. And the land ownership is just getting ever more consolidated. And right now is a critical time for that. America also loses about 175 acres of farmland every hour. And that's in America, but in Iowa, we lose about 20 to 25 acres every day. By the time I'm done with this conversation, about 100 acres of farmland will have been turned over to some other use, residential development use. I believe that farmland is a precious asset for our economy and our natural resources and for conservation. So protecting that land is very important, and it's being overturned quite rapidly. Iowa land prices have quadrupled in price over the last 3 decades. The fair market value for land is a record high now in our state. And this creates an intense bottleneck for farmers trying to gain access to land. Farmers who don't have the capital to buy land at that fair market value, or farmers who don't have land in their family. I had farmland in my family in Minnesota. That land is completely developed now. There's one of the biggest interstates around the city's area that goes through it, full of apartment complexes. I don't own land myself. I can't afford farmland. We lease land where we're farming. But I know a lot of farmers that only lease land and can't afford it. And that's because land prices have increased by 400% in 30 years. And finally, Iowa imports about 90% of the food that we eat here. And that number is comparable to a state like Hawaii in the middle of the ocean. And we're in the middle of the country with some of the best soils in the world, agricultural infrastructure, and a climate that can grow a lot of food, but we import 90% of the food we eat here. We grow a lot of crops here, but they're commodity crops that actually get sent out of our state and overseas and used for things that are not actually eaten. So the table foods that we eat directly have to be imported to our state. And I think that is an issue. So why is it not going? Here we go. So the Sustainable Iowa Land Trust, we're a nonprofit Iowa-based organization that is working to preserve and secure land for food farming purposes. And when I'm talking about food, I'm talking about table foods, things that we directly eat as humans. These are fruits, vegetables, nuts, pastured meats, honey, mushrooms, all these different types of crops that we know can grow in our state and that have been grown in our state. Iowa used to be the number one producers of a lot of different types of crops, such as apples, actually, grapes, potatoes. We used to be in the top 3 for a lot of these crops back in the early 20th century. But as land has been consolidated and we're bottlenecking the type of crops that we grow here, a lot of this conversation about the food that we can grow and have grown is lost. So a lot of my job, a lot of what we do at the Sustainable Iowa Land Trust is to unearth this discussion about growing food for the people here in our state and to create a market for it. And the ways that we're doing this is through working with landowners. The people that own the land are the ones that have the capacity to change the landscape. And a lot of my job is to do landowner outreach, to talk with landowners and provide them options to pass the legacy of their land on to the next generation of farmers who need access to land, those farmers who don't have the capital to buy the land at the fair market value, or who don't have land in their family that is passed down to them. So these are landowners that are conservation minded, who may not have a succession plan in place if they have kids, that don't want to take on the family farm, if they don't have kids at all, or family that want to take on the land, and landowners who are financially stable enough to do something like this. Land is one of the biggest assets for landowners, and I'm talking with people who have the capacity to make this, to create this gift. And the ways that we work with landowners is we do receive donations of land. We've had landowners who will outright donate the deed of their land to us because they believe in our mission to protect Iowa farmland for the next generation. Some of these landowners will donate the deed of their land during their lifetime under a thing called the reserved life estate, which is where the landowner will donate their deed and say, I give up the right to sell my land, but I'm still maintaining all other rights to it during my lifetime. So we as an organization work as a surrogate in a way where we have the deed donated to us. The landowner is still the proprietary owner. They get to decide who leases the land. They get to decide management for the land. They get to pay property taxes on the land, all the great things that come with land ownership. But they say that when they die, the land is going to be donated to SILT, and then we work to match the land up with the farmer who needs access to it. We also receive donations of a thing called agricultural conservation easements, otherwise known as land protection agreements. And what these land protection agreements are, these easements, they're legal binding documents that get attached to the deed of the land in perpetuity and recorded with the county. And what the easement does is it necessitates the use of the land as a food farm and for conservation. So in the easement itself, we work with the landowner to write the certain language into it, depending on the land and the goals of the landowner, to say this land will be protected from development. It will be protected from more less sustainable, conventional industrial types of farming that may harm soil and water quality and wildlife habitat, but allow for more nature-friendly food farming, where sustainable practices are used that build soil health, that clean water, and that provide wildlife habitat, but then also have locations for food farming purposes. So those easements, like I said, they're attached to the deed of the land. The landowner gets to retain ownership, and they are still able to sell that deed with the conservation easement. And we will be there as an organization that enforces that easement throughout time, and to help the landowner match their land up with somebody who is interested in buying the land with an easement. And what those easements do, they don't allow for public use. A lot of people hear the word easement, but it doesn't mean that this is going to be turned into a park or something like that. These easements actually can have language that say no public use, no hunting, depending on what the landowner's goals are. But the main thing and the most important thing is it creates land access, because since these easements are attached to the deed, restrict development, it lowers the value of the land. And like I said earlier, land prices have quadrupled in 30 years. So if we're able to take the land off fair market value and lower its value, it creates more opportunities for people to buy it and to farm it and to incorporate conservation because of that lower value. So that's where we're working with landowners, work with them on one side, and then we work with food farmers on the other side, those people who know how to grow food, who believe in eco-friendly farming, and who need access to land, the people who are growing those fruits, vegetables, nuts, pastured meats, honey, mushrooms. And we want to match the farms up to the most suitable candidates who need access to land. And we've done this with a handful of farmers already. We have land that we've provided lifetime opportunities to farmers for, and people who are able to start their farms because of the devaluation of the land and the affordable inheritable leases that they're offered on land that we provide to them. And it's been a very good model, and we are only 8 years old, and we have some success stories I'll explain here at the end. But we have farms all across the state, 14 farms that total about 1,200 acres that we've protected, either that were donated to us or land that are protected under those agricultural conservation easements that we don't own, but we just enforce. And here's a map of the farms that we protect across the state. It ranges all the way to Western Iowa to a lot of farms over here in Eastern Iowa. This is where I'm located. And our office is here in Cedar County in West Branch. And we're continually talking to landowners about protecting their farms, either donating them or putting an easement on them. And we're about 8 years old now and have 14 farms under our belt. So we're just continuing those conversations, and each piece of land is different. Each situation and story of a landowner is different. So it can take years and years for these projects to come into fruition. We have a campaign going on right now called Circle Our Cities, and it is our goal over time to protect farms around some of the bigger cities in our state here, to actually place somebody full-time in these cities to do networking and outreach, to find landowners and other constituents who believe in our mission, to look at their surrounding areas and to think about protecting pieces of land specifically for food farming and conservation, protecting areas that can incorporate eco-friendly farming practices that help clean water, build soil health, provide wildlife habitat, but then also provide food to their communities. So this is a campaign that we just started in the last year, and we have placed a person already in Des Moines who does this kind of work. And we're really excited to just keep building this idea, because we first need people to know about us, get in connection with them. And like I said, these conversations can be had for a long time before these farms are actually protected. So getting to the point where I want to collaborate with your club, the Ames Rotary Club, and let you know how you can help our mission and what we're doing. We put on a lot of events. We have 8 events that we're putting on this year. We've already done 2 of them. And at these events, we really like to gather people from the local area, landowners, farmers, people who are just interested in the local food system, gather them, provide education, talk about sustainable farming practices, hopefully be on a farm that is actually doing some of those practices already, and to have the farmer educate them. And then also talking about what we do with land protection on the Sustainable Iowa Land Trust side of things. And so we're put on a lot of these events, and these events take a lot of time, energy, and planning to put together. And I am coming to you today to ask if the Ames Rotary Club would be willing to help support one of these events by making a $1,000 donation for a specific event that you may even be able to go to because it's so close. So we're doing an event in collaboration with the Practical Farmers of Iowa, which they have their office and home base right there in Ames. The Practical Farmers of Iowa is a great organization that does a lot of farmer networking, education, working with landowners and others in the local food system. To do trainings, education, they're putting on 40 events this summer themselves. We're doing this one in collaboration with them through one of the grants that's helping fund my position. And this event is going to be on Saturday, October 8th from 2 to 4 in Clemens, Iowa, which is just northwest of Marshalltown there. The map shows that Ames is about 20 to 30 minutes drive. And I thought this would be a really good opportunity for the Ames Rotary Club to see where their donation and what kind of impact it has, because I'm asking for $1,000 to help pay for advertisement, to help pay for local farm food that comes from Ames and the surrounding areas to provide at the event, and then for other supplies to help with the event itself to increase farmer education. And at the event, we're going to be meeting with the landowner, Tim Swinton, who has converted 11 acres of row crop ground into a highly diverse farm that is growing fruits, nuts, goat meat. He's been planting prairie on his farm. He's turned the row crop ground into pasture forage and is rotating his animals on it, has turned his row crop field into a very highly diverse place where he is incorporating different types of food. And at the event, I want to provide local farm food to the people who come to it. I know several farmers in the Ames area who grow vegetables and do pastured meats that I would like to pay directly to get some of their food for this event and have it there so people can see some of these practices themselves, eat some of the food that we're talking about to make that connection. It's so powerful when people are eating good food and seeing how it can be raised to make that connection. Advertisement takes a lot of money. We send out a lot of postcards to the surrounding areas, and we have contractors that help with our media. So some of the money will go towards that, and then the rest would go towards supplies. But I want to use the money to get as many landowners there as possible, because the more landowners that we get there to educate them about eco-friendly farming practices and just food farming in general, the bigger the impact that we can have. Each dollar can have a bigger impact. If we can get 20 landowners there that have land that totals more than 1,000 acres. If we can change the mind of those 20 landowners in some way, that is a huge impact that can go on for a very long time. So these field days are very important, and you can learn more about it at the Practical Farmers of Iowa website. I highly incentivize you guys to become a member of PFI, as I'm a member, and they have a lot of other good field days too. But you guys can come to this event too, which is what I thought would be a good opportunity to see how the money would be used. You can eat some of the food it pays for and come and have a good time. So I just want to end. I know I'm coming up here on time, and we are going to go into a question and answer here in a couple minutes, but I wanted to end with a couple stories here, because I think stories are powerful and impactful. This is Lyle and Sue Luzum. They decided to donate their 170-acre farm up in Northeast Iowa to the Sustainable Iowa Land Trust. Lyle's family has lived on the farm for many years. He grew up there, his family grew up there, and they have a daughter, Lyle and Sue, who loves the farm but doesn't want to come back and farm the place. And she agrees with our mission, aligns with her values. And so they donated their farm in 2017. And we worked with farmers who were looking for land over here on the right. Andy and Betsy Boone and their 2 kids are farmers, and they were looking for an opportunity to live on the land and have access, long-term access to some ground to start farming. They have been there for 4 years now, and they've been raising sheep, and they've been raising pigs, chickens, vegetables, a lot of different things, because they lived on the farm. They had access to infrastructure that was donated. Lyle and Sue donated their farmhouse with the land as well as barns and buildings and everything else. And it gave us the opportunity to provide an opportunity to these farmers. And unfortunately, Andy and Betsy and their family, they're moving this year because they are going through a life change right now where they want to spend more time with their kids, and farming has kept them from doing that as much as they wanted to. So they're moving closer to town, closer to school. For their 2 young kids who are just coming up in age, and they've been there for 4 years. They're transitioning off, and we just recently found new farmers who need access to land. This is Carly and Bryant of Travel and Error Farm here in Iowa City. They've been leasing land to grow vegetables and build their market, their CSA and farmers market. business, and they will be moving onto the farm later this year and with their business and establishing up in Northeast Iowa. And they're hoping to get into animals in the future, but their main thing is vegetables, and they're very, very good at it. But they never had the opportunity to buy land in the area where they're currently farming because of land prices. And this opportunity is allowing them to sign on to a long-term inheritable, affordable lease with the opportunity to do a rent-to-own situation with the infrastructure. So part of their rental payments will go towards building equity in the building that they're living in, that they will then be able to sell on to the next farmer after they've built some equity. They won't own the land, but they will sign a 20-year lease with us that is inheritable and renewable. The house will be a separate agreement where they'll be leasing it. But like I said, a portion of that lease will go towards them actually buying the place. So that's the kind of model that we're doing here, providing land access in more unique ways. How am I doing on time? I have one more story here. I know I was going to leave about 10 minutes for question and answer.
You have time.
Okay. One more story. This is Will and Adrian of Jupiter Ridge Farm. Will and Adrian here. This is Steve Beaumont, who donated his land to the Sustainable Iowa Land Trust about 5 years ago. And he donated his land because he loved his land and he wanted to pass it on to people who needed access to it. And so after he donated his farm, we found Will and Adrian, who were just working on a farm. They were just some farm hands for a while at a local vegetable farm looking for access to land. We matched them up, and now Will and Adrian are living on the farm themselves. They're growing. This is their farm up in a beautiful Northeast Iowa, Clayton County, where they grow vegetables for CSA and for a market. They grow a bunch of mushrooms, actually, shiitake, oyster, lion's mane mushrooms. Will is a professional mushroom farmer and is doing very well with it. And they would have never had this opportunity if it wasn't for the love and care of the land of Steve Beaumont and being able to donate his land and protect it with the Sustainable Iowa Land Trust. So they're still up there rocking it, living in the house. They own the house. They're in a situation where their rent is just going towards slowly buying the house. And they are very happy with their situation. Oh, here's some more pictures of the stuff they grow. They are wonderful, wonderful farmers. So please go to our website. We have a really good resource guide called an Iowa Landowner's Guide to Sustainable Food Crops. If you want to get a free PDF of that to look through what types of crops can be grown in Iowa. It's something me and my coworker built together through a grant that we got. And it's a quick, easy way to just see what kind of foods we're talking about and some good resources in there. But also, I am available to do land consultations. My grant through the Natural Resource Conservation Service allows me to meet with any Iowa landowner to consult with them for free about what type of food farming might be possible on their land, given their soils and topography and land use history, and ultimately the goals of the landowner, to tie in a report that I can give to the landowner that talk about those options. And if you're interested in that, my email is joe@silt.org. We have a great website that is www.silt.org if you want to check that out. And we do rely on donations, grants, and other funding to support our organization. And you go up here to the top right and donate. We accept donations from anybody. So I want to thank you guys again today for having me, and I will be taking some questions here if you guys have any, but thank you again, really appreciate it. I see there is a hand raised from Jean.
Joe, do you recognize me?
I do.
So
Well,
just
you're
gonna call,
Are you Will's mom?
yeah, I'm William's
Oh.
mom. So my husband was helping Joe and the gang yesterday with the, what do you call it? Chicken harvesting.
Yep.
So
Your
I think,
husband was there and helping kill the chickens.
yeah, and I think Joe, Jeff Johnson had a question about how you do your chickens.
Yeah, I want to see if it matches what I grew up doing in Mississippi. Actually from the South, and I want to see if your process was anything close to what I grew up doing.
Well, we did it as humanely as possible. I mean, we raised the chickens on pasture. They had access to grass and sunshine and air almost all their life. And then we did it on the farm with humane methods. I don't know how in depth I should go here. I don't know.
It's a lunch, yeah, conversation. I did not go yesterday, Jeff, because I did not want to be part of it.
Yes.
Well,
It went very well, though.
What I imagine was either wringing the necks or chopping, and then a big black pot of boiling water for the defeathering and dehairing.
We were using cones that they get put in that holds them, and then you do your thing there. And we do have the water, and we plucked them by hand, and yeah, had a really good crew of naive friends, including Jean's husband.
Yeah. Well, I grew up doing that. I lived off the farm. I grew up with no running water and electricity. So
yeah,
everything we grew, and then we burrowed the ground and buried all of our vegetables in burlap sacks deep enough in the ground that they stayed cool enough. But we used rope to pull them out because of rattlesnakes. You didn't want to go put your hand into a hole of pine straw. So
yep.
We didn't call it sustainable farming. We call it survival.
Yes. Yes, I hear you on that, because I mean, that's what we were talking about yesterday as we were harvesting our chickens. I mean, we were saying if you didn't know how to do this, you wouldn't eat as a family. If you didn't know how to harvest your own food, if you don't know how to grow your own food, if you didn't know how to can for the winter, depending on where you lived, I mean, we forget how to talk about these things now. We forget about where our food comes from, and that it's so important to make sure that we have a strong, resilient local food system. And I think that during the pandemic, when things were falling apart, I was talking to a lot of my food farmer friends, and people were going crazy trying to buy the food from them because they thought that everything was going downhill and that we would have to go back to buying food from within 10 miles of us because all the factory farms were shutting down, grocery stores were getting emptied out. But we forget so quickly as humans when things start balancing out again. But I think it's something that we need to educate people on. We need to put it in our school system to teach kids how to farm, and just to understand the importance of food itself more than anything. So
I think the 90% stat you gave today is probably news to a lot of us on the import. So thank you.
Yep. And that is something that you can see if you just go into your grocery store. You can just walk around and look at the labels and try to find things that are grown in Iowa that don't have to travel from out of state. You can do that research yourself when you go grocery shopping for sure. Looks like I have, remember Chicken Day at Grandma's, and we used to chase the headless chickens around. Yep, ours was a little easier than that. But I had the opportunity to watch a film by Practical Farmers of Iowa, Livestock on the Land. That is a very good film. I just highly recommend going to PFI, becoming a member. It's such an incredible organization, and it's local to you guys. They're right there in Ames, but they work all around. They're the reason why I am working to become a farmer myself, just because of the network and the community that PFI provides. It's pretty incredible. Any other questions on here? I don't know how much more time we have. Anything about the
So
sustainable?
Joe, I have
Land
a
Trust?
question. So this year is the year that the Boone/Story County hosts the Farm Progress Show. Do you
Mhm.
participate in that, or do you have a booth at that?
We have in the past. I have not done it myself. I think it's something that we have looked into, but we have a lot going on this year that I don't think we're gonna make it. I swear. Yeah, we have a lot of events going on, so.
There's a question about the bird flu.
How does bird flu affect the small farmer? So I've thought a lot about this with our chickens. We got our chickens right in the midst of when the bird flu occurred. It's just gonna be a constant thing that every poultry farmer has to think about. However, I do think the smaller, more organically infused farmers will have more security against bird flu, just because the factory farms are the ones that are in danger. They have 20, 30, 50, 100,000 birds in one place that are confined, don't get to move. If one of those birds gets it, everyone's going to get it. Our birds are moved to new soil every day. They're not bunched up together. We clean our boots off. It can happen, but the impact will be much less. If one of those factory farms loses all its birds, that's an opportunity to go out of business. If you're doing it small scale and you're not only relying on your birds for your income, if you're doing sheep, cattle, vegetables, other things, you have income coming from other places. So, but it didn't affect our birds. I haven't heard anyone specifically who is affected. Any involvement with 4-H or FFA and youth involvement, we do have some involvement with those groups. I am more trying to work with older farmers. I'm trying to talk with landowners and people who want to donate their land. So I don't really do that much of it. PFI I know does. So we rely on other organizations to do those youth engagement, because we just don't have the capacity right now. So talk about the economic sustainability of your farmers. So some of the farmers on our silt protected farms, they are highly diverse in the markets that they sell into. Will and Adrian up at Jupiter Ridge Farm sell into 2 different farmers markets. They work with 3 different restaurant owners. They have a CSA, which is a community shared agriculture, where customers will buy a subscription to vegetables at the beginning of the spring and then get vegetables throughout the year. So they have a varying stream of enterprises that help create sustainability and resiliency if things do fall apart in one of them. So there is a market for fresh local foods. I do think people are interested in where their food comes from. And I think it's really important to understand where your food comes from, because a lot of things are put into our foods now that are not food, preservatives, and there's a lot of chemicals that go into growing food conventionally. And I do think it has an impact on our health. So these farmers are promoting their practices and are doing very well. And they are able to do it because of the affordable land that they are provided through our organization. Would you repeat your statistic on what happens in a day with Iowa farmland? So according to the American Farmland Trust, 25 to 30 acres a day of farmland are converted to something else in Iowa. It's 175 acres an hour in America. That's from the American Farmland Trusts. Thank you. How would you compare Iowa's efforts with those of other states? I think in terms of efforts of supporting a local food economy, we're behind. we're very, very behind. And we're a very industrial, agricultural farming state here. We grow only two types of crops, corn and soybeans really, and then we have hogs, but most all of these crops do get shipped out of state unless they're used for ethanol here. But most of that corn and soybeans fed to hogs and then sent to China, actually, and barely any of it stays here. So our local food economy is not that great. I can see progress in some parts, but it's going to take it's going to take a systemic change really. And land access is only one part of it. There's the whole infrastructure of making it happen and the markets that will support these farmers. So our efforts, we're way behind, I'd say. There are states that are doing actual progressive policy change to support their local food system that actually works. I know Maine has a good one, Washington State, Oregon, so we're pretty far behind. What do you think of vertical farming or vegetables and greens? I mean, we're going to have to, as we progress and have to find new ways to farm our foods, there's going to be a lot of different systems that we have to implement to do it sustainably and to make sure that we can use our space more efficiently. And climate change is another big thing that impacts farmers and how they're going to be growing. A lot of people have to grow under high tunnels, greenhouse type structures now to make sure that they don't get affected by our intense weather that we have now. So I'm all for sustainable farming techniques, but it's just making sure that we have places to do it. And that there's a market for it too here in our state. Any other questions or questions about the field day too? You guys, like I said, are all welcome to come to that field day on October 8th. And I'll be there, and you can introduce yourself and come see a highly diverse food farm yourself. Yeah. And you can sign up for our newsletter at our website to stay informed about our other events. We have, like I said, 6 more throughout this year that we'd love to see you at. We have one west of Des Moines in a couple weeks here in Earlham, Iowa, Dallas County, which will be a very fun day. It's on a Sunday, June 5th.
Joe, I just want to say thanks for taking this on, especially as a young professional. I can feel your passion. I can hear your heart. And so I, for one, am appreciative of what you're doing.
Thank you very much for that. I appreciate hearing that because it does feel like an uphill battle a lot of times. But I do believe in this mission, and I'm a young farmer myself, and I have a lot of young farmer friends who don't own land and are facing the struggles as well. And I see the issues, and I want to create opportunity wherever I can. And so it's about having hard conversations with landowners and talking to them like, what is the plan for your land and what do you believe in? Because no landowner is going to work with us for, we're not trying to sell anything here. We're asking people for their land and to devalue their land for a purpose here to create opportunities. So those donations and working with us has to come from the heart and not for monetary gain.
Well, Joe, thank you so much for your time. And I think I'm just going to piggyback what Jeff said and definitely hear your passion and your your passion for it. So we really appreciate your presentation today. Thank you so much. We can all virtually give you a thumbs up and clap, just so you know how much you're appreciated. So thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you guys so much. And like I said, this is my first Rotary Club meeting, and tell other Rotary Clubs that I'm willing to talk to them too. Give a recommendation. I'd be happy to do one of these a week, honestly, just to keep this network going. And I'd be happy to come back too in another year. And I really do hope you consider our ask for that donation, because every dollar of that will be put to good use, and you guys have the opportunity to come see the impact of those dollars directly by coming to the field day and even eating some of the food it pays for. So I hope that you guys are excited about that. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, I'll jump off here, but thank you guys. It was good chatting.
Okay, reminder that we do not have a meeting next week. Let's not forget that. Some of us will probably still show up. That's okay. But let's go ahead and stand for the four-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you, everyone. Have a great week.